than it's precipitating.
Yeah.
So how about that? We've got this down. We've got this low pressure system that's developing near the panhandle of Florida, pushing all of this moisture up here across the southeast. You can see it stretching all the way from the Carolinas back into Mississippi. We've even got some issues with flooding along the coast of South Carolina and Georgia right now. So the heavy rain stretches all the way out to the coastline here. What we're seeing is this rain moving up from the south up to the north, and we are entering into a little bit of cool air up into the mountains here where you can see some of that mixing happening. For the upstate, again, this is all rain right now. The temperatures are in the 40s. It's warmer above the surface, so we're getting rain. I did have a couple of reports of sleet at the onset of this setup where we had this pool of cooler air above the surface, but at this point, it's all rain right now. But you can see it's heavy rain in some spots across the upstate, and it's steady. It's coming down at a pretty steady rate, and I expect that for much of the overnight hours. Now, when you get up into the mountains, you start to see some of that mixing happening. The pink is headed more towards sleet, and then you get the white, and that's pure snow, and that's going to be the tops of the mountains. Notice that's up in Yancey County, where we have those higher elevations, those higher mountain tops to work with. So that's where you're seeing the pinks and whites is up above those higher elevations. Down at the valleys, you're still getting snow, and it's a little bit lighter up into the mountains as well right now. Our temperatures, again, across the upstate, this is very important for us, the temperature forecast here with those low 40s across the upstate. In the mountains, we are into the 30s, but notice even Waynesville and into Brevard, you're above the freezing mark by 2 degrees. Now, if you drop just a little bit lower, that's when we start to see that switch over to some snow. So let's put things into motion here. We continue to see that heavy rain work its way through as we head through the overnight hours. Notice we're still struggling to get that cooler air mixing in across the mountains at 1 a.m. Even through 5 a.m., that cooler air is kind of holding off here. The trend this afternoon is for a warmer setup for us here, and we get this little lull around 5 o'clock. But as we head towards 9 o'clock, that's when we start to see some of this cooler air getting pulled in, especially across the mountains. And some of this could make it down to the valleys. At this point, it's going to be hard unless you get set up under a very heavy snow band to really get good accumulation into the lower elevations. Most of the lower elevations, if you see accumulations, are going to be less than an inch. It's the higher elevations where we expect to see some accumulating snow. Now, across the upstate, it's not completely out of the question on the north side of 85 to see maybe a few flakes mixing in tomorrow morning. It's not the most likely setup because, again, it's going to be a little too warm for that. But if we get some of that cooler air sitting just above the surface, I wouldn't be out of the question. You're not going to get anything accumulating, though. By the time we get to 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we're still seeing some snow into the higher elevations across the mountains before this exits the area by about 8 o'clock tomorrow night. So in terms of our snow potential, above 3,500 feet, you get 4 to 8 inches possible. Even the top of Mount Mitchell could see up to a foot of snow. Below 3,500 feet, we're looking at less than 3 inches. Most areas in the valleys of the mountains of North Carolina are likely going to see less than an inch of snow. But if you get set up under a heavy snow band, you have the potential to see up to 3 inches. Now, again, across the upstate and the foothills of North Carolina, likely not going to see any sort of accumulation, maybe a few flakes flying tomorrow morning. We're increasing the potential, though, with this setup that we could see some ice accumulation across the mountains, even above 3,500 feet. It's not going to be that clean switch that we like to see from rain to snow. With sleet mixing in, we could see in some isolated spots up to a half an inch of snow. Check out these temperatures. This is what you're waking up to. This is why it's trending with lower snowfall totals than maybe what you saw earlier this week, where temperatures are going to be above freezing in the lower elevations. You have to go up in elevation to see that better chance for some accumulating snow. Temperatures tomorrow afternoon, though, are going to be chilly everywhere. We get 45 for the afternoon high into the upstate. Those mid 40s in the mountains, you're going to get stuck in the 30s. And then Monday morning, the concern shifts to anywhere that has wet roadways, dropping down to the freezing mark. Even in the upstate, hovering around the freezing mark, we could see some black ice issues, mainly into the mountains where your temperatures drop below 20s, and that precipitation really doesn't end until we get closer to 7 o'clock. And then on Monday afternoon, talk about whiplash. We're talking 50s and 60s for afternoon highs.